Hello, beautiful listener. I have a fantastic selection of classic English fairy tales for you today. So if you're ready for a little magic and some terrific tales that have stood the test of time, grab a cuppa, get yourself cosy, and we will start with The Story of the Three Little Pigs by Joseph Jacobs. There was an old sow with 3 little pigs, and as she had not enough to keep them, she sent them out to seek their fortune. The first that went off met a man with a bundle of straw and said to him, "Please, man, give me that straw to build me a house." Which the man did, and the little pig built a house with it. Presently came along a wolf and knocked at the door and said, little pig, let me come in." To which the pig answered, No, by the hair of my chinny chin chin." The wolf then answered to that, "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." So he huffed and he puffed and he blew his house in and ate up the little pig. The second little pig met a man with a bundle of furs and said, "Please, man, give me that furs to build a house." Which the man did, and the pig built his house. Then along came the wolf and said, No, by the hair of my chinny chin chin." "Then I'll puff and I'll huff and I'll blow your house in." So he huffed and he puffed and he puffed and he huffed, and at last he blew the house down and he ate up the little pig. The third little pig met a man with a load of bricks and said, "Please, man, give me those bricks to build a house with." So the man gave him the bricks, and he built his house with them. So the wolf came, as he did to the other little pigs, and said, little pig, let me come in." No, by the hair of my chinny chin chin." "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in." Well, he huffed and he puffed and he huffed and he puffed and he puffed and huffed, but he could not get the house down. When he found that he could not, with all his huffing and puffing, blow the house down, he said, "Little pig, I know where there is a nice field of turnips." "Where?" said the little pig. "Oh, in Mr. Smith's home field, and if you will be ready tomorrow morning, I will call for you, and we will go together and get some for dinner." "Very well," said the little pig. "I will be ready. What time do you mean to go?" "Oh, at 6 o'clock. Well, the little pig got up at 5 and got the turnips before the wolf came, which he did about 6, and who said, "Little pig, are you ready?" The little pig said, "Dot." "Ready. I've been and come back again and got a nice pot full for dinner." The wolf felt very angry at this, but thought that he would be up to the little pig somehow or other, so he said, "Little pig, I know where there is a nice apple tree." "Where?" said the pig. "Down at Merry Garden," replied the wolf. "And if you will not deceive me, I will come for you at 5 o'clock tomorrow and get some apples." Well, the little pig bustled up the next morning at 4 o'clock and went off for the apples, hoping to get back before the wolf came. But he had further to go and had to climb the tree, so that just as he was coming down from it, he saw the wolf coming, which, as you may suppose, frightened him very much. When the wolf came up, he said, "Little pig, what? Are you here before me? Are they nice apples?" "Yes, very," said the little pig. "I will throw you down one." And he threw it so far that while the wolf was gone to pick it up, the little pig jumped down and ran home. The next day the wolf came again and said to the little pig, "Little pig, there is a fair at Shanklin this afternoon. Will you go?" "Oh, yes," said the pig. "I will go. What time shall you be ready?" "At 3, said the wolf. So the little pig went off before the time as usual and got to the fair and bought a butter churn, which he was going home with when he saw the wolf coming. Then he could not tell what to do. So he got into the churn to hide, and by so doing turned it round, and it rolled down the hill with the pig in it, which frightened the wolf so much that he ran home without going to the fair. He went to the little pig's house and told him how frightened he had been by a great round thing which came down the hill past him. Then the little pig said, "Ha, I frightened you then. I had been to the fair and bought a butter churn, and when I saw you I got into it and rolled down the hill." Then the wolf was very angry indeed, and declared he would eat up the little pig, and that he would get down the chimney after him. When the little pig saw what he was about, he hung on the pot full of water and made up a blazing fire, and just as the wolf was coming down, took off the cover, and in fell the wolf. So the little pig put on the cover again in an instant, boiled him up, and ate him for supper, and lived happy ever afterwards. The Blinded Giant by Joseph Jacobs. At Dalton, near Thirsk, in Yorkshire, there is a mill. It has quite recently been rebuilt, but when I was at Dalton 6 years ago, the old building stood. In front of the house was a long mound, which went by the name of the Giant's Grave, and in the mill you can see a long blade of iron, something like a scythe blade, but not curved, which was called the Giant's Knife, because of a very curious story which is told of this knife. Would you like to hear it? Well, it isn't very long. There once lived a giant at this mill who had only one eye in the middle of his forehead, and he ground men's bones to make his bread. One day he captured on Pillmore a lad named Jack, and instead of grinding him in the mill, he kept him grinding as his servant and never let him get away. Jack served the giant 7 years and never was allowed a holiday the whole time. At last he could bear it no longer. Topcliffe Fair was coming on, and Jack begged that he might be allowed to go there. "No, no," said the giant. "Stop at home and mind your grinding." "I've been grinding and grinding these 7 years," said Jack, "and not a holiday have I had. I'll have one now, whatever you say." "We'll see about that," said the giant. Well, the day was hot, and after dinner the giant lay down in the mill with his head on a sack and dozed. He had been eating in the mill and had laid down a great loaf of bone bread by his side, and the knife I told you about was in his hand, but his fingers relaxed their hold of it in sleep. Jack seized the knife, and holding it with both his hands, drove the blade into the single eye of the giant, who woke with a howl of agony and, starting up, barred the door. Jack was again in difficulties, for he couldn't get out, but he soon found a way out of them. The giant had a favourite dog, which had also been sleeping when his master was blinded. So Jack killed the dog, skinned it, and threw the hide over his back. "Bow, wow," says Jack. "At him, truncheon," said the giant, "at the little wretch that I've fed these 7 years and now has blinded me." "Bow wow," says Jack, and ran between the giant's legs on all fours, barking till he got to the door. He unlatched it and was off, and never more was seen at Dalton Mill. Fairy Ointment by Joseph Jacobs. Dame Goody was a nurse that looked after sick people and minded babies. One night she was woke up at midnight, and when she went downstairs she saw a strange, squinny-eyed little ugly old fellow who asked her to come to his wife, who was too ill to mind her baby. Dame Goody didn't like the look of the old fellow, but business is business, so she popped on her things and went down to him. And when she got down to him, he whisked her up onto a large coal-black horse with fiery eyes that stood at the door, and soon they were going at a rare pace, Dame Goody holding on to the old fellow like grim death. They rode, and they rode, till at last they stopped before a cottage door. So they got down and went in, and found the good woman abed with the children playing about, and the babe, a fine bouncing boy, beside her. Dame Goody took the babe, which was as fine a baby boy as you'd wish to see. The mother, when she handed the baby to Dame Goody to mind, gave her a box of ointment, and told her to stroke the baby's eyes with it as soon as it opened them. After a while it began to open its eyes. Dame Goody saw that it had squinny eyes just like its father, so she took the box of ointment and stroked its 2 eyelids with it, but she couldn't help wondering what it was for, as she had never seen such a thing done before. So she looked to see if the others were looking, and when they were not noticing, she stroked her own right eyelid with the ointment. No sooner had she done so than everything seemed changed about her. The cottage became elegantly furnished. The mother in the bed was a beautiful lady, dressed up in white silk. The little baby was still more beautiful than before, and its clothes were made of a sort of silvery gauze. Its little brothers and sisters around the bed were flat-nosed imps with pointed ears, who made faces at one another and scratched their poles. Sometimes they would pull the sick lady's ears with their long and hairy paws. In fact, they were up to all kinds of mischief, and Dame Goody knew that she had got into a house of pixies, but she said nothing to nobody, and as soon as the lady was well enough to mind the baby, she asked the old fellow to take her back home. So he came round to the door with the coal-black horse with eyes of fire, and off they went as fast as before, or perhaps a little faster, till they came to Dame Goody's cottage, where the squinny-eyed old fellow lifted her down and left her, thanking her civilly enough and paying her more than she had ever been paid before for such service. Now next day happened to be market day, and as Dame Goody had been away from home, she wanted many things in the house, and trudged off to get them at the market. As she was buying the things she wanted, who should she see but the squinny-eyed old fellow who had taken her on the coal-black horse? And what do you think he was doing? Why, he went about from stall to stall taking up things from each, here some fruit, and there some eggs, and so on. And no one seemed to take any notice. Now Dame Goody did not think it her business to interfere, but she thought she ought not to let so good a customer pass without speaking. So she ups to him and bobs a curtsy and said, "Gooden, sir, I hopes as how your good lady and the little one are as well as—" But she couldn't finish what she was a-saying, for the funny old fellow started back in surprise, and he says to her, says he, "What? Do you see me today?" "See you," says she. "Why, of course I do, as plain as the sun in the skies, and what's more," says she, "I see you are busy too, into the bargain." "Ah, you see too much," said he. "Now pray, with which eye do you see all this?" "With the right eye, to be sure," said she, as proud as can be to find him out. "The ointment! The ointment!" cried the old pixie thief. "Take that for meddling with what don't concern you. You shall see me no more." And with that, he struck her on her right eye, and she couldn't see him any more. And what was worse, she was blind on the right side from that hour till the day of her death. Lawkamercyme by Joseph Jacobs. There was an old woman, as I've heard tell. She went to the market her eggs for to sell. She went to the market, all on a market day, and she fell asleep on the king's highway. there came by a pedlar whose name was Stout. He cut her petticoats round about. He cut her petticoats up to the knees, which made the old woman to shiver and freeze. When this old woman first did wake, she began to shiver and she began to shake. She began to wonder and she began to cry, "Lawkamercyme, this is none of I! But if it be I, as I do hope it be, I've a little dog at home, and he'll know me. If it be I, he'll wag his little tail, and if it be not I, he'll loudly bark and wail." Home went the little woman, all in the dark. Up got the little dog, and he began to bark. He began to bark, so she began to cry, "Lawkamercyme, this is none of I." Teeny Tiny by Joseph Jacobs. Once upon a time there was a teeny tiny woman that lived in a teeny tiny house in a teeny tiny village. Now one day this teeny tiny woman put on her teeny tiny bonnet and went out of her teeny tiny house to take a teeny tiny walk. And when this teeny tiny woman had gone a teeny tiny way, she came to a teeny tiny gate. So the teeny tiny woman opened the teeny tiny gate and went into a teeny tiny churchyard. And when this teeny tiny woman had got into the teeny tiny churchyard, she saw a teeny tiny bone on a teeny tiny grave, and the teeny tiny woman said to her teeny tiny self, "This teeny tiny bone will make me some teeny tiny soup for my teeny tiny supper." So the teeny tiny woman put the teeny tiny bone into her teeny tiny pocket and went home to her teeny tiny house. Now when the teeny tiny woman got home to her teeny tiny house, she was a teeny tiny bit tired. So she went up her teeny tiny stairs to her teeny tiny bed and put the teeny tiny bone into a teeny tiny cupboard. And when this teeny tiny woman had been to sleep a teeny tiny time, she was awakened by a teeny tiny voice from the teeny tiny cupboard which said, "Give me my bone." And this teeny tiny woman was a teeny tiny frightened, so she hid her teeny tiny head under the teeny tiny clothes and went to sleep again. And when she had been to sleep again a teeny tiny time, the teeny tiny voice again cried out from the teeny tiny cupboard a teeny tiny louder, "Give me my bone." This made the teeny tiny woman a teeny tiny more frightened. So she hid her teeny tiny head a teeny tiny further under the teeny tiny clothes. And when the teeny tiny woman had been to sleep again a teeny tiny time, the teeny tiny voice from the teeny tiny cupboard said again a teeny tiny louder, "Give me my bone." And this teeny tiny woman was a teeny tiny bit more frightened, but she put her teeny tiny head out of the teeny tiny clothes and said in her loudest teeny tiny voice, "Take it." Thank you for listening. I do hope that you enjoyed these stories. And if you did, hit that subscribe button to get more delivered straight to your feed. And don't forget to come back soon for another terrific tale.